We love featuring indie artists on the show, and today we're heading to Nashville to chat with singer-songwriter Brandon Bing. Brandon's been playing music since he was 6. He grew up in Florida, relocated to Nashville 4 years ago to chase his dream. His current single, Party in the Pines, just came out this month, with more to come from this rising star. We're stoked to have the Hoss, Brandon Bing, on the show. First, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate you, Jeff. Thanks for having me this morning, Bubba.
Wow. Well, I'm listening to an interview you did. I'm in Buffalo, Wyoming. We're just north of KC. You say you're a storyteller, which you are, Brandon. We'll get into that. But you were influenced by Chris Ledoux. Tell us about that.
Yeah, huge Chris Ledoux fan. And just always been a big fan around, like, the rodeo circuit. Being from Florida, you know, a lot of people think about beaches and Disney when they go to Florida. And, you know, back in old Florida where I'm from, outside in, like, Sam Sewell area, you know, we have a lot of, you know, just basic, like, small town rodeo events and things like that. He was a big bronc rider. Obviously, a lot of people that know Chris Ledoux and his music. And over the years, you know, the West has always been something that's, you know, just kind of been a part that's developed and grown with me. You know, as I've gone through, you know, music in my career, you know, I've always appreciated a lot of the classic songs. And, you know, Cowboy Hat was like one that just really stuck with me over the years. That was just a really, you know, deep, detailed, you know, storytelling song. And that record was something that really, like, positioned me, just like Bareback Jack and things like that, to really dig deeper into my experiences, you know, as a writer, outside of just being a performer, right? Because I feel like, you know, in country music, you know, being able to really be vulnerable and show the levels of authenticity to the listener is really important, so that when you're out on stage or when they're listening to your records, you know, in their own spare time, you got your audience that can really, like, emotionally connect. And I felt like, you know, he was just that cutthroat, you know, he was that, you know, town man in the community. He was big, you know, in the space of bronc riding. He was big in the space of, you know, that Western, you know, country and, like, waltz, you know, vibe. And then at the same time, he was a family man, and there's, like, this, like, kind of, like, serial entrepreneur. He was just hustling. Like, just if you watch things in his documentaries, a lot of his talents and a lot of the things and sacrifices he made were things that, you know, I saw myself doing. And I never forget, man, I was in Billings, Montana, and I had gone out there and had the opportunity to go to the pub station, not to perform. And I met his son, Ned Ledoux. And when I met Ned, like, it was just it was a skin crawling moment, you know, just like when he sang some of his dad's classics outside of his own music. It just made my skin, you know, and the hair on just, like, stand up. I felt like it was just, like, skin crawling. I literally felt like if you closed your eyes, certain moments made you feel like he was right in the room. And it just really put a fire under me to really dig deeper in my songwriting and what I wanted to do as I developed as an artist.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. You're out at the pub and you got to meet Ned. Yeah, Ned sounds just like Chris. It is pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But you grew up on a ranch in Florida, which is crazy. Talking to all these artists in Florida, I didn't realize how many ranches and farms there are in Florida. But where were you at? You were just north of Orlando, right? In what, like Longwood?
Well, Longwood was like the Wekiva, so you had the Wekiva Preserve, and it backed up to, like, the Popka and Rock Springs. So it was mainly nothing but, you know, orange groves and cornfields between there and Zellwood and Ashtabula. And then, you know, after, you know, I got in through college, I wound up moving up to Volusia County, which was Port Orange, Sam Sewell area, and it was all basically just livestock, you know, cattle. We had a bridal club. I mean, it's still to this day pretty much just a one light town in that, like, corridor. I mean, you get into the Daytona area and stuff, and you get more things going on beachside and people in the Daytona 500 and Bike Week. But, you know, a lot of Florida's a really unique kind of specimen, right? You know, you got all these, like, few pockets of these metro places like Orlando, which is your Disney Worlds and stuff, where you got Miami and Tampa, Jacksonville, and parts of the Panhandle. But, you know, roughly probably, I don't know, 75, 80%, you know, Florida is what we call old Florida. And that's, you know, you got so much. I'm a big history guy. And so I think that also leads into a lot of the storytelling element for me, you know. So, you know, you got the stuff with the Spanish Armada and the founding of St. Augustine. You got the old cattle drives that took place in Osceola and Polk County, you know, and it went all the way back, like just seeing, you know, where the Florida Crackers came from and the trails that they went through and going up through, Keystone Heights and Green Cove and Apalachicola. There's so many like just nice little like hidden gems that really allow you to appreciate like what they call rural Florida. And it's just something that if you get a chance to come to Florida and you have an extra few days to kind of venture off into a space that's not in the tourist areas, you really are like, wow, you're kind of enamored with it. It's kind of like when I come out west to Wyoming or Montana, and you got that whole, that stigma of like, hey, this is God's country. You're just out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you're just really capturing all the environmental factors, the topography, those things they're just really heavy elements. And in our case, it's marsh and palmettos and cypress head swamps and just like dunes and stuff. But it's just really cool, and it just really makes you appreciate, what makes Florida Florida. So
yeah, and not a lot of people know about it, which is crazy, but yeah, it's because all the tourist spots. Well, you were living in Florida. You were in the business world. You had a solar company. You have a solar company that was going on. You were doing open mics. You were still doing a little bit of music. But tell us the story of how you got to Nashville, Brandon, because it's cool.
Yeah, so basically, like like you mentioned, Jeff, like doing the open mics, playing that whole like smoky bar and guitar or honky tonk scene. I did that from about 19, 20 years old up till about, 27. And I would go around and do that to, whether it was being in spots from two-stepping and line dancing and hopping on a mic or doing a karaoke or doing a pop-up. I was able to kind of hone in on my craft. And I always thought that you could always do it. My dad worked in the industry for a little bit outside of college, and I was exposed to a lot of the music, throughout my development growing up and through church. But I had a buddy of mine, we had a plan to go to Nashville, and my buddy Vinny was like, hey man, you want to, like, let's go to CMA Fest. And we went to CMA Fest, went to CMT Awards, and kind of a full circle moment as of actually a few weeks ago, because I came out of CMT Awards, went to Tootsie's famous Orchard Bar and Lounge, which is a historic, rooftop bar in downtown Broadway in Nashville. And I walked in there, and obviously it was packed because of the fest going on. And there was a band that was playing on the lower level, and the guy was about to take a break. So my buddy's like, hey man, they had that bucket go around for requests. He's like, hey man, if I give you $20, can my buddy Brandon got to sing one? I'm like, yeah, it's got to be a cover. But like, yeah, sure, why not, man? And kind of hit it off, me and the guy. And then, long story short, it got me on stage, and I did a little Big Green Tractor from Jason Aldean, and it was just such a cool moment, man. Like the crowd ate it up, and I was a little nervous, to say the least, just because it was like a new environment, just being a little uncomfortable. I was a little whiskey bent on some wild turkey, but I made the best of it, and the crowd really enjoyed it. And then when it was done, he was like, man, he's like, they were wanting more. And I was like, dude, he's like, man, you always said you wanted to do this. And I was just like, yeah. I said, but I just don't know. And he's like, well, if you're going to do it, he's like, you're not getting any younger. He's like, you might as well do it. And I was like, yeah, you're right, man. So we went to a Sam Ash, and we were staying at the Omnia Hotel downtown. And I remember we went in there and bought a small little interface, a mic stand, a pop filter, and started just like working on covers and music, like from the laptop and stuff in the hotel room, like literally that night going into the next day. And it was just like one of these crazy things. And then I started, creating music. And then fast forward, 4 years being in Nashville, later, I was actually there. My buddy Mac was playing on the second level just a few weeks ago. And I remember I came in with some people that we had met, and he came up to me and he was like, man, I'm just I'm so glad I get to know you, watching you on this journey and everything. He's like, man, I love you, bro. And he's like, let's take a picture. And we did sing. And these guy on the stage is like, man, we're taking requests. Someone threw $40 in there. And again, of course, covers. So I shout out my boy Co. I hopped up on the stage, did a little February 28th, and, had the crowd erupt off it. We caught it on video, and I put it up, and I made this post, and it was just like a moment in time for me to be able to sit up there and just be like, hey, man, like, I was here, 4 going on 5 years ago, playing the same stage. Here, 4, almost 5 years later, I'm playing the same stage again, but look at where I've gotten to, and look at the support and the people I've got to meet along the way, and all the venues and places I've got to explore and visit around the country that continue to inspire me, telling my story, through these songs. And it's the most infectious thing, man. It's honestly, Jeff, it's just like, it's an obsession. And the people, when you're playing these shows or doing these, whether it's acoustic and you're doing a pop-up or a full band where you're rocking the faces off, you just feel so connected, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, go check him out. Brandon Bing. He's at BrandonBingMusic.com. He's on Facebook, Instagram, X. Go to YouTube, check out his videos. His latest single, Party in the Pines, is out now. Well, you moved to Nashville. COVID hits, but you twisted, Brandon. You worked this to find your sound and style. What did you think, or what kept you going during COVID?
Yeah, I think what kept me going was, I'd already committed, my producer at the time when I did my first song back in 2018 that I dropped in 19th Sunday Funday, Jeff Bowen. He was like, hey, I was working with him in a small home studio in Florida, and I'll never forget, he was my guitar instructor and worked with me on the production. We put this little record together, and it was a great, first step and get my feet wet. And when I got the opportunity to work with Kenny Royster up in Direct Image in Nashville, off of Music Row, he originally cut Luke Combs' Hurricane record and a couple, several other songs on his first two projects as he was building his career. And I got connected with my studio musicians, and at that point, I started building this team. And I remember Jeff told me, he's like, I'm not going with you. He's like, you're going to go up there and you're going to go swim in this pond. Like, you're going to find your space. And it was like being in this big space of open water, like in the middle of the ocean, swimming with sharks. And you're like, how am I going to survive? And I just trusted my talent. And when COVID happened, I had just dropped my first EP, The Florida Man, February 22nd, 2020. And 2.5, 3 weeks later, we went into a statewide, nationwide, lockdown. And I was like, I'm like, man, I can't catch a break. I'm like praying to God, like, what I thought I did this, God, like, what else do I need to do? And it was like nothing was connecting. And I was just like, I put all this work in, like, is it all worth it? And then at that moment, it was like, all right, well, go back to the drawing board and just work even harder and be more efficient. And so I started really, like, digging into myself, self-reflecting on myself, my sound, my purpose, style of my songs, what my niche was, who my market was, and demographic. And I really honed in onto it. And fast forward, I did the Dying Breed EP, and then I dropped my Huckleberry debut album last year, September 30th in 2022. And that was a defining moment where I'm like, man, how lucky am I not only to have the people around me supporting me within the industry, but also to have the opportunity that I was able to find my sound so quickly, where there's so many artists that I know that are on the same hustle that I am right now, that are still struggling to find out who they are. And so now that I'm locked in, it's like nothing's going to stop me. The only thing that's going to stop me is myself, but there's no plan B. So plan A, hey, what steps do we got to take just to get to the top? And once we get there, we just got to stay there.
Yeah, and one of those songs off that EP, Blue Collar Swaller, you got some moves, Brandon.
Yeah. Hey, I got a little spin around, I can slide on those leather soles, so don't count me out, Jeff. Don't count me out.
Yeah, go watch the video for Blue Collar Swaller. He's with what's that guy, Zeb, or what's his name?
Zeb Ross, yeah. The Jake Creek Cloggers, yeah. That was, man, him, and then his wife, Ashley Ross, and Terry's stepdad and his mom, Kim, like that whole group in Maggie Valley, the whole Cloggers, they're like family to me. They had their, his wife and him, they just had their first, daughter, Maria, and it's just like, man, like, again, I meet all these great people, I build these relationships, and it's just something that I couldn't ask for something. It's the best blessing in the world, just the energy that you get from the people and the relationships you build, because everybody says, well, what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is stay authentic to you and just embrace these people, because these people are going to be your biggest fans, your biggest supporters, and they're going to do everything they can to help you get where you need to be.
Yeah, go check it out. Huckleberry came out in 2022, and he hasn't stopped. I mean, it's pretty crazy, Brandon, how busy you've been. You just mentioned authenticity, which I listened to an interview with you, and you're big on that, which is huge. Be yourself. But Rat Race, your last single, how tough was this song to write? Because this is an emotional song. Yeah,
that song was something that was, again, going into going into the vault, I was able to really take a step back and start really digging into myself. And that was, growing up where I did in Florida, and just different relationships I've had with people and friends, and understanding some of their stories. I felt like there was a time to talk about addiction. And so, addiction is something that a lot of people don't really want to have to face. It's a very difficult demon to conquer. But for me, I found that my purpose through these songs is, I feel like it's my responsibility as a writer and as an artist to be the one inside our space in country music, as far as contributing to writing some of the most uncomfortable, vulnerable, unspoken truths. And so I just deep dived into, being very colorful and very vivid in the images. And a lot of people, if they don't know me and they start listening to me starting today, or if they have been following me, they'll know that I'm very intentional in my lyrical content. And on this one, talking about a guy that was making wrong decisions under addiction and putting this girl at risk, and then obviously ultimately, her being ejected out of a windshield, like that image is not something that you can just unsee. And the sacrifice of him using his own, he's using all his own addictions as the means, as, hey, like that led him to that demise. And then it led him to never being able to wash the blood off of his hands, because that vehicular manslaughter charge was something that he had to deal with. And that's on his conscience forever. And so I'm like, how many people are out here in our country, and in the world, but like how many people on a regular basis go through situations as severe as kind of like what Rat Race and other songs that I have that talk about things like that. And it's like, I think so many people that might go to see psychiatrists or, groups for counseling, I'm not against any of that stuff. I think, those people that do that are very skilled and talented to some degree. But I feel like that there's a space where a lot of those people that are struggling with these demons and these addictions and these major obstacles in life just are looking for someone to understand them. And when I go to a show and I play these songs like that, stripped down acoustic, and I get a chance to look into my crowd's eyes, and I get to get off the stage when I'm done, when I'm selling my merch at my booth, and I'm shaking hands and spending 10, 20, 30 minutes listening to their stories, and they have my undivided attention. Not only do I know that I'm giving them every dollar worth when I'm on stage for 20, 30 minutes as an opener, 75, 90 minutes as a headliner, but when I'm done, they feel like they're a part of me and I feel a part of them. And that also led to where I built the Hoss Nation brand, as my fan base. And those are the people that just give me all the energy and the fire every single day.
Yeah, one wrong turn at the blink of an eye can change your fate. Go check out the video for Rat Race. It's great. Brandon Bing, go check him out, BrandonBingMusic.com. He's on Facebook, Instagram, X. His latest single, Party in the Pines, is out now. But we got to mention your whiskey, Brandon. This Bangtail whiskey.
That's it.
Hoss Nation, 90 proof, corn-based hash. It looks awesome. How did this start?
So my mom's from Kentucky. I got a lot of roots in Kentucky. I was always a big whiskey bourbon connoisseur. I was a big Wild Turkey fan. I love other ones like Eagle Rare and Rabbit Hole and things like that. And, I realized, in music, as much as, being a writer is telling stories, as much as being an artist is being an entertainer and performing, it's like you're building a brand. You're building a business. And so I was like, I need something that's going to be a part of me as I keep growing as an artist, and that's going to attach to my fan base, and also have something that's going to be a week to week, month to month kind of product that people can consume and take a part in. Because you go to a show, you buy a shirt, you might buy a hat, a couple stickers, maybe a CD or a vinyl, something like that. But you might go see your artist, unless you're really like diehard super fan, maybe once or twice a year. You see them at a show or maybe a festival, something like that. But you spend the average consumer spend a couple $100, and that's a lot for a lot of people. So I was like, how can I have something that they can consume that feels like it's a part of their lifestyle, but it's also a part of me, and can keep them engaged with my music? So I made the whiskey, and I created the mash bill. I did it all with my buddy Jose Aponte, and we built it from the ground up. I branded everything. I come up with the things. My buddy Gerald Studs was my creative director. He helped me design all the labeling, and it was just cool having friends help me again in this process. Building these teams to have something to provide to the public. And so, you know, I built the whiskey for two things. I wanted to have a whiskey that was going to be the official whiskey supporting original live music, you know, letting people see the story behind the song, let them see all the hands, you know, guys and gals that are a part of what makes these shows, these festivals, you know, possible, like from musicians to the stage crew to the management, you know, to the studio musicians and the producers and the writers and the artists, and like give the people consuming country music inside lens, like a different perspective of like really understanding the big picture of what makes music, right? But then at the same time, when they're out there at a show or festival, you got good people, good whiskey, good music, and good times. And so that's what Bangtail is, you know, official whiskey supporting original live music, and also whiskey for women, trying to get more females that don't drink whiskey to enjoy a more smooth, palatable experience. And that's where I came up with the product. And then because I do so much in the rodeo space, as far as working with the different events in the PBR, NFR, ABBI, PRCA, then I took the name Bangtail in Western Rodeo. That's why my logo is a horse. In bronc riding, called Wild Mustang a horse because Wild Mustang a Bangtail, because when it's coming in and out of the chute, it's bucking and rearing. The tail of the is hitting the back of the rider. So you got a Bangtail. And then for English riding in 17th, 18th century Western Europe, they used to take the hocks of the tail and they would chop them, and they'd be called a tassel tail or a bang tail because it looked like a female's bang on her forehead. So that's why my logo is a reared up horse with a cropped tail. And so yeah, and then of course, you know, when you're 3 sheets to the wind at 3 a.m., everybody's gonna bang some tails. So it's just something that hits all the demographics, you know.
There you go. Yeah, go check it out. Bangtail.com. You can check out Brandon's Bangtail whiskey. I want some. It's in Georgia and down south.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, ships nationwide.
Yeah. Are you still writing every day? I mean, how much are these writers' roundtables? How much have they helped you through the last couple of years?
They've helped me a lot because, you know, it gives you the opportunity from a space of writing to test out songs on crowds. Small crowds, to me, I used to get nervous. Like, you know, everybody still gets nervous. I think if you get nervous, you're doing right? Because it's making you excited. But small crowds make me more nervous than large crowds because you have less people in a space and they're more critical of what you're doing. Then when you play acoustic in a writer's round, it's just you and the guitar. So vocally, everything has to be on check. Guitar-wise, whether you're flat picking or playing regular strumming, rhythm, etc., like every, you know, nuance is caught. And so if you make any mistakes, then obviously, you know, you're the one that's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. And so it's really taught me to really refine on my craft. Spending more time when I'm in my own time in private doing practicing exercises on scales and things like that to make my dexterity really good on my guitar. But then also being more comfortable storytelling and really engaging more with the audience. And I use that in my live show with a full production as well. But I write every day. I mean, I just did a write with my buddy Jonathan Thomas yesterday. I got a write this afternoon with another writer, Karina. You know, I write at least once a day, 5 days a week. And then, you know, you kind of do that. And then, you know, you're getting to know each other. You know, what I love about writing is it gives us a space where you get into rooms with guys and gals that are doing the same thing on the same journey, and they're all telling their stories about, you're getting to know them, who they are, where they come from, what makes them tick and top. And then you start, as you're doing that discovery, you're finding things that you all share in common. And then it leads to, hey, man, you got any ideas for the write today? Oh, yeah, man, I got a list of, like, ideas and concepts. Hey, what you got? Okay, yeah, what you got? And then you find one that kind of fits, and then you guys land on it. Then you start writing it, or someone's coming up with a guitar lick or a progression, and 3 hours later, you know, you got a song in your life. And that was cool. And then you're like, y'all want to demo that? You want to pitch this? Do you want to cut it? Do I want to cut it? And it's just really cool seeing that whole experience start from nothing but just a little conversation.
Yeah. Wow. Rat Race was your emotional song. Party in the Pines is the party song. Tell us about the new one, Brandon.
Yeah, Party in the Pines, big Alan Jackson fan. And I love college football. It's a standalone single. Made the record primarily because I wanted something that was not going to be attached to any project that I'm working on next or anything. I just wanted something that could be kind of like a timeless classic. It has a little 90s, early 2000s nostalgia. Like I said, I was a big Alan Jackson fan as well. And he did the song Chattahoochee. And so if you listen lyrically, to the content and just how everything paints these pictures in that record, you'll see real quick. You'll hear that Alan Jackson kind of vibe with the guitar licks and the baritone guitars. And you'll hear, bringing the fiddle in there. I made something that was going to be systematic to like tailgates and college football season going into the fall. That's why I dropped it on September 1st. It was going into the first opening true weekend of college football season. And that way, every year that comes around going forward, as I continue to grow too, this record can grow with me, and it can hopefully be an anthem that's played through, college campuses and tailgates and stadiums at some point. Hopefully that's the long-term goal. But it's the answer to Alan Jackson's Chattahoochee. So that was kind of where I came up with the idea. I wrote it with my buddy Stetson Nelson, and we just came in that room and just kind of crushed that idea, knocked it out of the park. It was a fun one, and can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, here it is. Go check him out. Tons of more stuff coming from Brandon Bing. He's just getting started. BrandonBingMusic.com. He's on Facebook, Instagram, X. Here is his brand new single, Party in the Pines. Brandon, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate it, Jeff. See you next time, Bubba.
It's Party in the Pines. It's KIX 96.5.